Washington as the military leaders warn the president, you got to listen to us for once.
That sounds like that's the situation. Brian Ainsley and Steve, good morning. Look, the chaos in Kabul has the president facing enormous pressure, not just from military leaders, but also later today from America's closest allies, like Britain at the G7, over extending this August 31st deadline, which the Taliban calls a red line.
If they extend it, that means they are extending occupation. While there is no need for that, I think it will create mistrust between us. It will provoke a reaction.
Now, even the chairman of the House Intelligence Committee, Adam Schiff, admitting that completing the mission in time isn't going to happen.
I think it's very unlikely. It's hard for me to imagine all of that can be accomplished between now and the end of the month. I think the threat to the airport is very real. This would make a very attractive target for ISIS-K or for elements of Al-Qaeda.
This, as neither the State Department nor the Pentagon would give specifics on the number of U.S. citizens evacuated. However, you see here Politico reporting that number is 4,293. But guys, more troubling, they also still don't know or won't say how many Americans are currently stranded. That's a word they don't like to use at the White House. Meanwhile, as that G7 virtual meeting gets set to go, the leaders will wrestle today with whether or not to even recognize the Taliban as they take over. The top UN human rights official this morning saying she has credible reports of the Taliban committing summary executions of civilians and increased restrictions being placed on women, which she calls a red line. Brian Ainsley, Steve.
All right, Griff, we thank you very much. In the last hour, the British Defense Secretary Ben Wallace is quoted in the pages of the Washington Post saying that he does not expect Joe Biden to extend the deadline past the 31st. So that would be a big problem because they're estimating that there are 15,000 people gathered around the perimeter of the airport trying to get in. They can't get in, though. And, you know, the government says, hey, shelter in place, stay there. We cannot guarantee safe passage. So those people are, I hate to use the S word, but they are stranded outside the airport.
Well, and even Adam Schiff, who's a Democrat House Intel, they were meeting yesterday, and he said, I don't think this can be accomplished in the next week. I don't think we can get all of the Americans out.
Yeah, by the way, France's foreign minister said additional time is needed to complete the pullout. British Prime Minister Boris Johnson said expected to try and persuade the U.S. to extend the deadline. So you have the German the incoming chancellor, presumably incoming chancellor, call this a flat-out debacle. And the allies are fed up. They say that the Americans are dictating. They're not even asking for any input. And at least the allies are allowed to go outside the wire. The U.S. officially can't go outside the Kabul airport, but more and more we're getting different reports that they're choppering in and out people in Kabul. But I worry about cities outside Kabul, let alone those stuck outside the airport. This is unbelievable. But today, I love the fact that the military said, if you want us out, the 5,800 troops you sent in, and you want us to get the citizens out, you have to tell us today. So President Biden, time is ticking away.
He has to make a decision today. You know, Peter Doocy was at the White House, and he asked Jen Psaki a very fair, very legitimate question about the people. Every time we talk to them, they do say they are stranded over there. They're scared. They're holed up. They're worried about even walking outside. And he asked her about all these Americans that are stranded in Afghanistan. Listen.
She didn't like it.
Does the president have a sense that most of the criticism is not of leaving Afghanistan, it's the way that he has ordered it to happen by pulling the troops before getting these Americans who are now stranded? Does he have a sense of that?
First of all, I think it's irresponsible to say Americans are stranded. They are not. We are committed to bringing Americans who want to come home. We are in touch with them via phone, via text, via email, via any way that we can possibly reach Americans to get them home if they want to return home.
There are no Americans stranded is the White House's official position on what's happening in Afghanistan.
I'm just calling you out for saying that we are stranding Americans in Afghanistan.
Well, you know who else says that there are Americans stranded?
in Afghanistan? The New York Times. A headline yesterday said U.S. forces go into Kabul to extract stranded Americans and their allies. Trey Yingst, who is our man in the region, he was in Kabul a couple of days ago. He said Americans are stranded in Afghanistan. Denying this fact is ignoring reality. Congressman Josh Gottheimer, Charlie Crist, Ken Buck, and Senator Tom Cotton all posted tweets urging stranded Americans to contact their offices. And you know who else is saying they're stranded? Somebody who's stranded, a woman who spoke on Fox and Friends First just about an hour and a half ago. She is in desperate need of being rescued because she says she's stranded. Listen.
We're stranded at home. We can't get to the airport. When we try to get to the airport, we either get beaten up or we're afraid for our lives. For 4 days, 4 days, we didn't hear anything from anywhere. And then they're saying to go to the airport, but we're not being given clear guidance. They're saying one thing, and then the next thing they come and say something else. So you really exactly don't know what to do. There's a lot of miscommunication going on. You know, your emails are getting ignored. Or, I mean, imagine being stranded in a situation like this and not receiving anything for 4 days from the U.S. Embassy or the State Department. I am afraid for my life, that I don't know how things are going to go. But I really need our president to really consider this serious. We are in danger. We are in danger, Mr. President. Please help us.
Can you imagine the fear? Not knowing if you're going to die, not knowing if someone's going to come and rescue you.
She's not stranded.
She is clearly stranded. She even said she was stranded. She's actually there. She's actually living it. Pete Hegseth is someone who has been there. He served in the Army. He was in Afghanistan. His interpreter, by the grace of God, is here in America, but he has friends that are there that are stranded, and they are worried. Here's Pete.
We are at the whim of our enemy. The people who facilitated the 9/11 attacks now control which Americans are allowed to flee the country, which in effect, Jesse, makes every American, and frankly every Afghan translator who can't get through, already a hostage of the Taliban, hostage to a timeline they're committed to, and this White House is completely beholden to. We're calling the Taliban and asking permission and not pushing out to secure a perimeter and making it very clear, if you harm a hair on the head of an American, we're going to stack Taliban bodies. Give us 24 hours wide open, every American in, you touch one, you die. It's not hard, but we won't do it.
We won't do it. And we are capable of doing it. And at some point, the president's got to realize either you leave thousands of people in country, or we're going to have to put thousands more into Afghanistan to secure their safe passage. The Taliban only understand strength. All they're getting is weakness. Jay Johnson, former Homeland Security Secretary, said things are going to get worse before they get better. Inside the airport, it is Hades on Earth. And it turns out there were 3 babies born aboard during the U.S. evacuation on these missions out. 3 babies born on planes.
One woman almost died.
Yeah, it's unbelievable.
Blood pressure went down.
We don't even know. Do you understand what the administration's doing? They keep saying, well, when Americans come to Afghanistan, they're supposed to register with the embassy. Some didn't. That's their right. So we don't even know where they are. They're setting you up to say they're stuck. Not our fault. Not acceptable. I love what Jennifer Griffin said yesterday to John Kirby. He said, listen, why'd you leave Bagram Air Base? Well, no, be a Monday morning quarterback. She says, no. Why don't you take it back? You have all this room. It's totally secure. You got all these runways. We know how to use it. The Russians built it in the 80s. We built it up until 3 weeks ago. It was ours. Take it back. Get our people out and understand that right now it is not over. We look like we have lost. We look like we're leaving tail between our legs. We look like we're leaving Americans behind, but we can still show strength right now.
Yeah.
Back those rebels in the north. Get back Bagram Air Base, and we tell them when we're leaving.
John Kirby said about the Bagram Air Base to Jennifer Griffin, we're not going to Monday morning quarterback. She said, what are you talking about? I'm just saying, going forward, let's go back in there. And he said it would be an expenditure of resources and personnel and would increase the threat. it would get Americans out. And last night, Ollie North was telling Sean his strategy, number 1, number 2, number 3, all the things he would do. And one of the things he said, there are nearly a dozen U.S.-built airfields in Afghanistan. 1 or more of these must be opened and put under U.S. military control.
Right.
We have the runways there to help get our people out.
We just have to go borrow them. Hey, it's just going to be like a timeshare until we get everybody out. Apparently, the president said yesterday the reason he does not want to send the troops outside of the airport perimeter is to rescue Americans who are stranded is because he did not want a Black Hawk Down situation like the movie, which completely went south. Although it has been revealed, apparently the U.S. military, and they're not publicizing this, have made a couple of trips via helicopter out a number of miles away from the airport to fetch Americans and bring them back. The problem is because so many people are scattered all across the country, how do they rally at one point without drawing the suspicion of the Taliban who are going, hey, what are you guys all doing here at the hotel?
Forget suspicion. The British are doing it. The French are doing it. The Dutch are doing it. We got to go do it. We tell them what we're doing because, remember, we beat them in 3 weeks with the Northern Alliance at front. We know exactly, even though we gave them $85 billion worth of our stuff, we know exactly what to do. We know the roads. We know the places. We should go back into our embassy yesterday. And the other thing to keep in mind, he told us he didn't want another Saigon moment. He gave us worse than a Saigon moment. He gave us the new Kabul moment, which is a total disaster, people falling out of landing gear from thousands of feet in the air with 800 people on a cargo jet. You already gave us that. You don't live life on worst case scenario. You have the worst case scenario for me is thousands of Americans left behind. And don't tell that to the military. They want to go do their job. Let them do their job.
And did y'all hear that a former UK leader was saying that Boris Johnson and Angela Merkel were trying to get in touch with Biden in the beginning of this when Kabul was falling, and he wasn't calling them back. He wasn't taking their calls.
Do you believe
for
that?
36 hours. And so today on the call, the Zoom call where he talks to the group of 7, it'd be great to be a fly on the wall because all those other countries are furious at the United States that we have pulled out the way we have because they are also being left high and dry. But according to the White House, they're not stranded.
Right. Remember, we're back in, where America's back. America gave the rest, our allies, the Heisman, and gave the Taliban a win. Thanks, President Biden.
6:13 here on the East Coast. A decorated retired Navy SEAL commander delivers the message that he thinks the president should be sending to the Taliban.
Good morning. We are back now with your headlines. Overnight, a Philadelphia police officer is grazed in the head by a bullet. Officials say the officer was responding to a call when a gunman opened fire. Just hours ago, that officer was able to leave the hospital and go home to recover. Authorities believe they have the person responsible. This happening, though, as another Philadelphia officer is shot while a suspect steals their police cruiser. That officer's condition is not known at this time. President Biden calling on companies in the private sector to step up the vaccine requirements after the FDA gives full approval to Pfizer's COVID-19 vaccine.
If you're a business leader, a nonprofit leader, a state or local leader who has been waiting for full FDA approval to require vaccinations, I call on you now to do that. Require your employees to get vaccinated or face strict requirements.
Meanwhile, in New York City, every teacher and staff member must be vaccinated. Their first dose must be given by the end of September. The mayor is negotiating with unions to make this happen. NFL superstar Tom Brady says the secret to success is avoiding the blame game. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers saying in an interview, quote, "Today the world wants to blame and shame and guilt and fear everything all the time. It's so easy to blame someone else. It's so hard to say and get the job done." Brady said he would never teach his children to blame others, insisting it's, quote, "not how to live a joyful life." We'll get Barstool Sports founder Dave Portnoy's take on this and more later this morning. Back to you guys.
It's worth reading the entire article.
Yeah.
It was awesome.
Right. Because
Just
he's
a great
right.
message. Right. Talks about playing on a team sport, how you rely on each other. You don't blame one player if something goes wrong. You go out there and you bring your best.
Unless the referee blows the call and blows the game, then it's
Are you
all right.
blaming somebody else?
Yeah, believe me, everybody else blames too. And so the umpire blows calls. Why are they arguing so much if you don't blame anybody?
Hold on a second. Right. Hello. Brian, it's Tom Brady.
Right.
He wants
Again,
to talk
tell
to
him
you.
I'm busy.
He's trying to fix you.
He's not the only one with a job.
Thank you, Jillian.
Thank you. All right. Meanwhile, let's switch gears. The New York City Police Department has made an arrest in that brutal hammer attack last weekend on that subway platform.
The suspect was already arrested twice this year. Does that surprise you? And released for different crimes.
Yep. Sorry for cutting you off twice, but Carly Shimkins joins us live with another show of the state's soft on crime approach.
Yeah, that's right. You said it, guys. The NYPD arresting the man accused in a vicious hammer attack on a Manhattan subway platform. Police say 41-year-old Jamar Newton is the man seen in this video. Now, the attack took place on Saturday at Union Station. The 44-year-old was struck in the back of the head after an argument. The victim has been hospitalized and is expected to be okay. Police arrested Newton Sunday after he allegedly stole a chain necklace from a teenager at a Harlem train station. Newton reportedly has a lengthy arrest record. The Daily Mail is reporting he was arrested in April on 5 misdemeanor charges, but then released without bail. He was arrested again in late June and again released. Newton is in police custody and was scheduled to be arraigned yesterday. Meanwhile, former New York Governor Andrew Cuomo marked his final day in office, handing out 4 sentence commutations, 1 pardon, and a parole board referral to convicted murderers. David Gilbert, a member of the Weather Underground, was one of the men granted clemency. Gilbert is the father of San Francisco District Attorney Chesa Boudin. Gilbert was convicted of 3 counts of second-degree murder for his role in the 1981 Brinks armored car robbery.
Washington,
Boudin, who lobbied Cuomo
the
for
military.
his dad's release, tweeting in part, "Guys, my heart is bursting." Send it back to you.
Thinks he's signed on the way out.
Yep.
The cover of the New York Post is all about his dog because the Albany newspaper reported that as he was leaving the governor's mansion, he said, "Anybody want to take my dog, Captain?" And the governor now denies it. But apparently one of the employees did take the dog for a while, didn't want to keep him because apparently the dog is a biter. And so now the governor is denying that he's leaving his dog. It's part of our family. So he posted a picture of him with the dog and his family that was taken last year.
Yeah, we showed the images, I think it was yesterday, of the U-Haul truck taking his belongings. And I understand he is storing them in his sister's house. He's got to find a house now, a home to live. But last night, late last night at midnight, Kathy Hochul, our new governor here in New York, first female governor making history, she was sworn into office, put her hand on the Bible while her husband held the Bible. Then there's also going to be a public ceremony this morning at 10 o'clock.
Yeah, he leaves in disgrace without friends, but $18 million in the bank. You wonder if there's a comeback, but the problem is he has literally no allies. Evidently, to know him is to hate him. And now that people see he's powerless, a look for him to be totally isolated. But he got teary-eyed in his final farewell, which lasted 14 days too long. Who ever heard of leaving in disgrace in 14 days? While over the weekend pretending he was still governor, telling everyone to look out for the flooding. We understand that.
And still getting the pension.
Yeah. 50,000.
Well, until midnight, he was the governor and he was making his own rules. Meanwhile, out in the great state of Iowa, where I was born.
Where you were born.
Exactly. They now have a law on the books where kids in schools can say the Pledge of Allegiance. Now, here's the thing. So it went through the legislature there, and one of the legislators, Iowa State Representative Carter Norman, apparently somebody, a woman, left a voicemail on his machine talking about the bill. Did not like the bill at all.
You think?
Yeah. So we're going to play parts of it. We can't play all of it because it is quite explicit. But this is an Iowa resident who does not like the Pledge of Allegiance in the schools, apparently.
When did we start teaching white nationalism in schools? Because that's exactly what the you're doing, sir, and you have absolutely no right to require something like that. Our children aren't proud to be American. What are we proud of? We're proud of our racist history. We're proud of our racist roots.
And you know what Carter Norman, the representative, then did? He called her back.
And she hung up on him.
Said, I said everything I got to say in the voicemail.
Here he is. He was on Fox and Friends First a little while ago.
There are people who are willing to die to come to this country. People would put their lives on the line to trade places with anybody who has so much hatred for the United States. I watched a group of Afghans clinging to the side of the United States and was their only beacon of hope of survival or a better life. So I think a lot of times people take this country for granted, and it's really a disappointment.
Yeah, she went on to say these blonde-haired, blue-eyed children have more rights than anybody else. Not proud to be an American. See, this is what happened when you grow a generation that was told over and over again that America's bad. Then they get older and have kids, and one of the first things they say is America's bad. And then you have a school system that's about to teach their kids that, unless you pick the one you pick your kids out of the public school system. This is what you get. That whole America terrible thing, that whole 1619 theory is beginning to get traction. So a lot of people are high-fiving on that voicemail, not on the retort this morning on Fox and Friends First.
Well, we can talk about our history, we can condemn things of the past, but when you talk to Marcus Luttrell, we had him on last week, and he was talking about what he went through in Afghanistan. Right. He was the lone survivor. When he saw the Americans that were proud to wear the flag, proud of the national anthem, proud of the Pledge of Allegiance, and they pulled him out of Afghanistan and they saved his life. He couldn't wait to put his feet back on American soil.
There are tens of thousands who are waiting to get back here, begging to be chosen, hoping, sitting there.
Begging to be chosen. That is so true.
Yeah, begging to be chosen, to be able to get in a cargo jet for the opportunity to come here. Most of these people have no clue, even though our country's not perfect, how much better we are and much more promise we give than any other country on the planet. My advice to you is travel, examine, and if you find a better place, stay.
One of the final things the voicemail leaver said to the representative is, I will work from now until next year to make sure that you are not reelected. But you got to figure, after he had his answer, will people side with him or will they side with her?
It's Iowa. What do you think?
It's Iowa. I think we all know. I think we all have a pretty good idea how he's going to do next year. All right, coming up next, retired Navy SEAL Jocko Willink is going to deliver a forceful speech on social media on what he thinks our message to the Taliban should be. Jocko, coming up next.
Good morning. We are back with your headlines, starting with Fox weather. 3 tornadoes touching down in Massachusetts as the remnants of Henri head to sea. The National Weather Service says the twisters had 65-mile-per-hour winds. No injuries or deaths were reported. The East Coast starting to clean up after the storm turned roads into rivers. In Connecticut, the waters causing this road to collapse, forcing 18 families to evacuate. Power crews are scrambling to restore power in Rhode Island as roughly 12,000 people are still in the dark. A Fox News alert, and take a look at this. Passengers on board a plane have to jump down the emergency slide after it lands in Seattle. The evacuation was caused by a fire started by a cell phone. Flight attendants on the Alaska Airlines flight from New Orleans using a battery containment bag to extinguish the flames. Officials say some of the passengers got hurt while evacuating. Wow, that is unbelievable. Ainsley, I'll send it to you.
Okay, good deal. Thank you so much, Jillian. Well, this just in. The Washington Post reports CIA Director William Burns secretly met with the Taliban's leader in Kabul yesterday, the highest level face-to-face encounter between the Taliban and the Biden administration since the militants seized Kabul. But one decorated Navy SEAL going viral with the message that he would deliver if he were President Biden. Listen.
In the next 48 hours, America will be in control of most major airports in Afghanistan. Any resistance we meet from the Taliban or otherwise when we seize these airports will be destroyed completely and without mercy. Any person that interferes with these operations will be killed.
We bring in Jocko Willink, the man you saw there, the man you see this morning. He's a friend of our shows, retired Navy SEAL, recipient of the Silver Star, the Bronze Star, former commander of Navy SEAL Team 3. Good morning to you, Jocko. Thanks for joining us.
Hi, Ainsley. Thanks for having me on.
You're welcome. I watched the whole thing yesterday on Instagram. Powerful message. Why did you feel the need to do that?
Well, I just felt that no one was making any statements, taking ownership of the situation that was happening. And if there's no one that's actually taking ownership, how's that problem going to get solved?
And if you could sit down with Joe Biden, what else would you say to him? How would you tell him to rescue our Americans that are over there?
Well, listen, the thing is, you can't make excuses, and we've heard a lot of excuses from the president at this point, you know, that this would have happened with any withdrawal plan, or the president of Afghanistan run away, or I was just following through with the deal from the last administration. And all those are just excuses and placing blame on other people. The plan was a failure. Explain what went wrong, take ownership of what went wrong, and then come up with a plan on how to fix it. That's what he needs to do.
What was your reaction when you heard Jen Psaki say that Americans are not stranded over there?
I don't believe it. I mean, there's 10,000 people on the ground. The Taliban's running around. There's ISIS. There's Al-Qaeda operatives. That's not true as far as I can tell.
Yeah, Fox and Friends First, Jillian and Carly, they interviewed Fatima, which is she's an American government worker. Her daughter is here in America. She has a hard time talking to her daughter over the phone because her daughter is scared she's not going to make it home. The mom is terrified, and she says she is stranded. Listen to this.
This is a chaos. We are kind of back to square one. People are going to be left here for Taliban again. I am afraid for my life. That I don't know how things are going to go. But I really need our president to really consider this serious. We are in danger. We are in danger, Mr. President. Please help us.
Jocko, that's heartbreaking. It has to be frustrating for our troops here in America that are ready to go, that want to go and rescue these Americans. Are you talking to some of them and hearing that message?
Yeah, it's exactly what you said. First of all, yes, it's absolutely sickening to hear that. And second of all, yes, American troops are ready to go and ready to do what is needed to keep those people safe.
And what was your reaction when you heard that the CIA director met face-to-face with the Taliban leader?
I can tell you that this is not progress. This is not progress. We should not negotiate with terrorists. It's not what we do.
I do want to get to the good guys that are there on the ground. We have so many American service members that are doing wonderful things. These images circulated and have been circulating on social media over the last few days. There was an image of our servicemen and women that were pouring water from water bottles into the mouths of the babes that were there waiting to get on planes and trying to hopefully get out of there and be saved. There are videos of our men and women that are lifting babies over the walls and helping out the adults as well. You guys are heroes. What's your message to them?
Well, seeing soldiers and Marines behave like that is no surprise at all to me. This is how they are trained. This is how they're expected to behave. These are the values that they live by. And not to mention, these soldiers and Marines, these are brothers and sisters and mothers and fathers and sons and daughters themselves. These warriors that we see, they are human beings as well, and they take their humanity with them onto the battlefield. And their mission there is to help the friendly civilians, and that's exactly what they're going to do. They're going to execute their mission.
Yeah, Jocko, I'm watching them drink this water that's clean. And I was reading this morning, so many of the children are malnourished over there. There's fecal matter that's found in their water, which obviously is not healthy for these children. Why do you serve? Is it to do things like that, to help other people that are innocent?
Well, that's why people in the U.S. military serve, is to try and help people that can't help themselves.
God bless you, Jocko. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. 6:37 here on the East Coast, and President Biden ignoring reporter questions on Afghanistan again. Listen.
May God protect our troops. Thank you.
All right, President Biden busy making headlines yesterday, but not about Afghanistan, about this.
Today, it's an important moment in our fight against the pandemic. The FDA approval is the gold standard. I'm calling on more companies, I should say, in the private sector to step up with vaccine requirements that'll reach millions more people.
He wants to talk about anything but Afghanistan, right? Is this just an attempt to distract the American people away from that crisis? That's the argument my next guest makes in his new op-ed. Fox News medical contributor Dr. Marty Makary joins us right now. Doctor, what makes you think politics is getting into his medical remarks?
Good morning, Brian. Well, first of all, medical advice is sacred. It should not be used to distract from headlines. And if you look at what happened within hours of the viral video of the Afghan airport, the White House leaked to the New York Times and Washington Post that they were going to announce the next day boosters for all Americans, despite no evidence to support that it reduces severe illness and without any CDC or FDA guidance on it. They have to vote and make that formal label. And they said they're going to do it in the future, in 30 days. Who does that? And every single day since that viral video, there's been a massive announcement, either about cloth masks in kids or mandates, and then 3 days after the viral video about the FDA is going to approve the vaccine after sitting on it for 9 months.
Here's an excerpt from your column. Leaking the FDA approval would be imminent 3 days after the viral video of the Afghanistan airport is curious. The use of medical recommendations as a smoke bomb from other political problems is an unprecedented violation of the public trust in the medical profession. Please stop playing politics with COVID. But it doesn't stop there. You have the booster shot one day, and then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, the FDA is going to give full approval to the Pfizer vaccine. And that becomes a leak, and then that becomes an announcement. Do you believe the timing is curious?
Well, both the boosters for all Americans and the FDA announcement were both leaked. And normally, we don't have any FDA approvals that are leaked that deliberately with that much preface before they come out. So, look, it's a common practice in politics to drop news headlines to distract, but it should not be done with medical guidance, and that violates the great public trust in the profession.
Dr. McCary, we spend all this time, we're going back and forth on politics and medicine and how did it get this way? They're playing into it. They make people doubt because they look at this timing and they say, wait a second, does it really get full FDA approval? Do we really need a booster shot? What are we worried about? Mild cold symptoms for the vaccinated? Are we trying to stop mild cold symptoms? Is that the issue? Where's the study? Are we going by Israel?
I can tell you a lot of doctors, I would say the majority of doctors in the United States, were perplexed at the broad recommendation that they announced they're going to make in over a month about boosters for everybody, because the data right now shows that you get mild symptoms, that is common cold symptoms, and that is increasing over time after vaccination. Interestingly, not with natural immunity, by the way, but there's no evidence that you get hospitalized or have an increased risk of dying or severe illness over time. That immunity may still be solid, so let's wait for the data before we make broad recommendations for everybody.
Absolutely. And by the way, do we know if any vaccinated people have died on breakthrough ailments?
We're not seeing it, Brian, and the idea that somehow, that could happen, we have not seen that. If it happens, it's infinitesimally rare.
Right. So we'll see. And just real quick, Moderna, why Pfizer first? What are they waiting on Moderna for full FDA approval?
First of all, many of us were saying back in March these things needed full approval. The American people needed that faith and seal of the U.S. regulatory bodies. This is all way late, but Moderna filed 3 weeks after Pfizer, so we'll see that in a few weeks, and then J&J to follow soon after.
All right, Dr. McCary, thanks so much. Too bad politics is leaked into medicine. You wrote about it today. Thanks.
Thanks.
All right, now I want to check in, and it's totally my decision, with senior meteorologist Janice Dean for Fox Weather Forecast. That's the type of power I have, Janice.
So what it says in the teleprompter has no bearing on anything.
Okay, you outed me. The decision was made this morning.
Very nice.
Right.
But I'll take it. I'll take whatever I can get at this point.
Okay.
Let's take a look at your current temperature. New York, 72 in Boston. But you know what? It feels warmer than that because we've got so much humidity in the atmosphere. And we have the potential for stronger storms across the Midwest. Let's zoom on in where we have our severe thunderstorm watch and a couple of severe thunderstorm warnings in and around the Minneapolis area. So large hail, damaging winds, isolated tornadoes will be possible. Otherwise, not a bad forecast. It's going to feel like summertime for much of the U.S., and we have heat advisories in effect for portions of the Mississippi River Valley. Heavy rainfall over the next couple of days for the Midwest. Henri is out of there. That's the good news. And we have a frontal boundary that's going to bring the potential for showers and thunderstorms for the southeast and parts of Florida. And there are your current temperatures again. How about that? We're going to wrap up on that and send it back to Brian.
All right. Thank you very much, Janice, for making that decision. I truly appreciate it. All right. Up next on this show.